Welcome to Game Warp. I'm Kim, and joined with me as always is my co-host Elwood Jones. How are you, Elwood?
I'm good. How are you, Kim?
I'm good. I'm good. So we had some articles that went on that moment in at our home base about Montreal Comic Con, and Montreal Comic Con happened from July 8th to 10th this year. And in this beautiful Canadian city, I had a chance, because I live here, I had a chance to go and take a look at it. So it's fair to say that Montreal Comic Con is no longer what it used to be. This year was huge. Like, especially for us, like going this time with a focus of gaming, there was Outlast 2 for honors, Deus Ex with live demos, and PlayStation and PSVR was there as well with some games to try. But obviously, being Game Warp, our main attention was into the indie game corner. And I was very lucky this time to try out a few of the games. And actually, today is a very special episode because we have a special guest here that I met at Montreal Comic Con. And he's from Maitop Games. Welcome, Jonathan.
Hi, welcome. Thank you. Thank you for having me on the show.
You came to the show with Bomb Conflict, which is a mobile game, a mobile puzzle game to be more exact.
Yeah.
So maybe can you tell us a little about yourself and your background in the gaming industry?
Yeah. Myself, I'm a developer. I'm a senior developer from the web industry, and I migrated to the game industry by game designing games because since I'm like 3 years old, I am in love with games. I'm a huge geek. Since the NES till like the later consoles, and I always wanted to do that. But I first started in web, and then like I said, we migrated to mobile and game development in general.
Obviously, you mentioned that you started off on the NES. I have to obviously ask, being like the retro game fan that I am, what would you say were those sort of key titles that inspired you to want to go into sort of game design, or that you just generally enjoy playing when you started off as a gamer?
As a kid, I was a huge fan of RPGs, especially like Chrono Triggers, Final Fantasies, all the major RPGs, especially for the SNES. Those were my dream titles. I played them so much and replayed them. But yeah, those games inspired me a lot. Those and some classic platforming games like Donkey Kong Countries and Mario Brothers and stuff, like the most well-known games. Those inspired me a lot in my game design. Like if you look at the map there on Bomb Conflict, one of my main inspiration for the map is Super Mario World. Like you can see all the dots on the map, and you move from one level to another with the pathing and stuff. That was a huge inspiration for me.
It definitely reminded me of Mario, and it would have been it actually you beat me to asking the question,
Sorry.
which is great. Because like Bomb Conflict is like it's really cool in the way where it is set up in a rather retro world. The art is pretty distinct as well. It pays back to a lot of the retro games that well, obviously I am the Mario fan here. So, so I just want to know, so what made you jump in? Like you told us about you wanting to go into games. So how did Maytop Games come to be?
Maitop came as my partner and I. We were like all huge fans of games, but we were all working in the web industries, the B2B industries, like doing stuff for business to business and clients and stuff. And we said one day, let's create a game company because we all love games. We read a lot about games, read a lot about game designing, how to create games. Why not try it ourselves? It was as the start of the Hindi movement, like 4 or 5 years ago, and we've started working on Gravity Bounds, the first idea behind Bomb Conflict, to test the market and see like how far can we go in the mobile industry that was beginning. Far can we go with not much money? Like what can we do and how much can we get now? And with Gravity Bounds, we had featured on Salut Bonjour. It's a TVA French show. We had some featured in some journals here and stuff, and we got around like 20,000 people in like just the first months of the game. So we were very lucky about that, and that inspired us to just continue going forward in that direction.
I would have to ask. You mentioned already about the rise in popularity, especially for independent games, and we've
Yeah.
seen. I would say in the most recent years, we've seen a lot of independent titles that are now getting the same recognition of AAA titles with things such as Life is Strange. Certainly, our featured game for this month, Oxenfree, another indie title from Night School Studios. And these games are getting treated exactly the same as a mainstream release. So, why would you say that the indie market has suddenly seen this rise in popularity?
The main thing I could say about this is you might know Nobuo Uematsu, the music director from all the whole Final Fantasy games.
Yeah.
That guy said in an interview one day that the best game that he had worked on were the games where he had a smaller team like Final Fantasy 6 or 5 or 4, because the team was smaller, the company was smaller, the budgets were smaller, but they had more freedom to work with. Because now the big AAA companies like Ubisoft and EA and stuff, they have more like constraints, a lot more people. Like when you work with a team of 120 people, it's way different than working in a team of like 20 or 30 people. And each part, like each person plays in the company, is really, really different from that perspective. So you have more freedom to create, whereas you're in a small team of people, and that give great games like you mentioned, or games like Shovel Knights and stuff. They're like the greatest game of the last 10 years, but they've been made with small teams of like 20, 30, 40 people's max.
How many people are on your team?
My team, we're only 3 person full time and 2 part times to
Okay.
create the game.
Okay.
Because right now in the team we have one artist full time. I'm a developer, and I'm the game designer too. And we have another developer too, plus 2 part-time people helping us with the 3D modeling and the visual stuff in it.
Okay, so would you say that because there's a smaller team, like the communication is better and like your ideas pretty much like there are more original ideas as well?
But sure, the communication is better because if you want to share an idea with someone, like you have to talk to 2, 3, 5, 10 people at most, and you don't have to like ask a committee and pass that idea to that committee and then talks to anyone else, and the idea gets like broken in all small parts and it gets modified along the process. Yeah, you can be more creative, like I said, because people's will go when your direction when the team's smaller. Because if they like it, they won't be afraid to go for it.
So you would say it's the advantage of obviously having a smaller team is that there's not so many people you have to answer to. You can, if you had an idea, you can just throw it out to that small group, and you know straight away. It's not the case of you've got to pass it up so many channels to get approval. I know certainly when we look at the AAA games, a lot of the time you see the list of developers, the people who worked on the game, and it's equivalent to if you're watching a big budget movie, the amount of people that work on these games. So we've obviously yourself who only has 10 people. Would you say there's a certain advantage and that it's sort of preferred way to work with a smaller team, even though you obviously have those restrictions with budget and limitations on what you can and obviously can't do when it comes to making your games?
Yeah, exactly. But that could be a two-edged sword because you can cut yourself with that advantage. It can become a disadvantage because you're smaller. Maybe your range of experience is smaller too because you have, for example, 1, 2, 3 visual artists, and you don't have a team of like 30 visual artists with all different skills. So this can be an advantage, but this cannot be an advantage at the same time.
So obviously the mobile game market is huge right now. Like, I mean, you just open Google Play, and there are 1,000 10,000 games that you can choose
Yeah.
from. Games that I've never even heard of, never even known. And I guess that's why Montreal Comic Con is so great because we get to discover games such as yours, which are new on the market. And many of the other selections there were also mobile games. So I just want to know, like, what are some of the hurdles of getting into the market? Like, were there certain things that you had to think about and be concerned about before you decided to step into this market?
Yeah, but we had the chance to see that market evolve because 4 years, 5 years ago, the market was much smaller, and you could just like release a game and hope that people will talk about it. Just advertise a small amount, and you can have like an organic users coming through your game just by searchings and stuff. But now there's way too much apps, and it's like a giant war right now. So you have to make a perfect game loop, you have to advertise perfectly, you have to retain your user perfectly, or you'll die very fast. So you have to know what you're doing here, because you'll just crash very fast.
You said already with the market being as flooded as it is, and it's a market that is only sort of getting more and more titles added to, especially when we see things like Batista releasing games such as Fallout Shelter for the mobile market. We've also seen at the E3 convention, we had the announcement that EA Games is also going to be developing its own independent label that it essentially started with Unravel. I mean, do you feel that these larger companies developing their own independent wings is sort of putting more strain on the smaller independent companies, or do you feel that there's a place for all games regardless of the size of the company?
Well, there's a place for all good games, because we can't hide the fact that there's a lot of not so good games on the market. The good games will tend to go higher in the tops, and people will download it more. But it's not only like doing a good game; it's also an advertising war. How you retain your user, like I said. But yeah, for sure, the fact that Bethesda's and big companies like that are injecting a lot of money into creating some such great games in the market, for sure they steal some spot to people, but the market is so huge. There's place for everyone that like create good games and advertise good, and if they put efforts into it, they can make like the top 100. And if you make the top 100 and stay there, you can make enough money to survive in there and have a bigger team and do
Yeah.
other games.
I suppose it's the advantage of having a big advertising budget, which obviously these companies will have, so they can afford to promote their games on like the big stage like E3 conference. They can get the advertising space where obviously a smaller company perhaps wouldn't have that sort of access and requires the sort of more word of mouth. I mean, would you say that most of your players have been attracted through sort of like word of mouth, or is it sort of been a combination of the two of finding sort of those key advertising spots as well as getting the word of mouth out there?
But it depends what you target. If you target like North America, like example for Canada or Quebec, word of mouth at TV shows and stuff that talks about you, that could be a great platform to reach users. But we won't hide the fact that the best way to acquire user is through ads online, ads and publicity, and you make people talk about your game online, review sites, all the exposure you can get online. That's the best way to attract users. But if you check for local, like here in Quebec and stuff, the fact we went to Comic Con got talked about us, and it helps us in a way. But yeah, if we look at the worldwide perspective, we need the online exposure for sure.
So I guess we should start talking about your latest game, Bomb Conflict. Right now, like you already talked about that, it was like the map itself is inspired by retro games like Mario, just the way it looks and just the setup of it. And I've seen it for myself, and I've actually finished the first area. And I'm enjoying it. I think the puzzles are really cool. I just wonder, like, what inspired the story behind Bomb Conflict? And well, you can even talk a little about what the story is for
Yeah.
our
Well,
viewers who
first
don't
I'll
know about it.
explain the story. The story is there's invaders. They invade your world and they drop bombs everywhere. And you're the god of gravity. And citizens ask you, please God help us. We're in trouble right now. So you're the god of gravity, and you help citizens clearing the bombs that the invaders left everywhere so they don't get invaded. And to clear bombs, you shift gravity, like you shift the planet up, down, left, or right. And when you shift in the direction, everything moves in that direction. Like if you have a big box of objects and you tilt it on one side, everything in the box goes on that side. So that's the main thing about the game. For the story, for real, I wake up one morning and I had this idea and I said, "Wow, that's amazing! I have to do it." It's no more than that.
We can definitely understand that since we are also kind of like writing for things also. So, the inspiration sometimes just comes up.
Obviously, it's an unusual concept to say the least, and I love the simplicity of the game. Not to obviously take anything away from the game, it's such a simple game mechanic. This idea, as you said, it's like you have a box of objects, and by moving your sort of virtual box around, you obviously have to move and manipulate them into the correct space. So I love the simplicity of it and just how addictive it is at the same time. And you can obviously, as you've mentioned already, you can see that influence of the Super Mario world, especially with how the map's laid out. And I love the fact you have the little citizens run from point point A to point B. So it's got that nice little touch to it there. When you were obviously coming up with this game, I mean, did you have any particular audience that you were sort of targeting for it, or was it always sort of like you felt that there wasn't, because of the way the game's designed, that it would certainly appeal to independent games, especially because it got that sort of interactivity with obviously mobile gaming, so things like the iPad and the iPhone and stuff. It's very easy to connect with and very easy to manipulate with that. So, I mean, was there a particular vision when you set out, or was it sort of the vision came out after you started working on it?
No, actually, we had an idea in mind. We wanted to target like the young family, like you have two parents in the 30s with young kids and stuff. So the parents can play without like having some experience in gaming, and the kids can play, and it trains their logic too. So we targeted like the young family. If it goes beyond that, we're happy because more people, it's the better. But that was our main focus there. But the main focus was everyone can play without like having some game experience. That was our first thought, and then we said let's target the family.
Well, that was something that I like. It's something that I like, and it's why I don't play AAA games very frequently, because I like the simplicity of games, and that's one thing that's very important for puzzle games because the more complex it is, the harder it is to pick up, and when it becomes really hard to pick up, you kind of just put it aside and you go for something else. I guess every individual is different as well, and this is like quick rounds. You can kind of like just finish it fast, and so like I just want to go back like for your first game was Gravity Bounds, and obviously it was, you said it was to test the market. So there was one feature in Gravity Bounds where you can actually tilt your cell phone in order to move it. Are you planning to implement that eventually into Bomb Conflict, or are you just going to keep it like the swiping of the finger over the screen to tilt the board?
No, we're implementing at right now. At the moment, we did a first version, but it's a bit hidden because it's not working as it did. Like if you go too fast, it tends to go haywire. So you can activate it in the option menu, but we let it hidden. And we're working on it to improve it so it goes way better. During the next couple weeks, you'll see an updates, and that will be in. So especially on tablets, this will be amazing because you can just tilt the tablet, and it's like you have the whole world in your hand, and you just tilt the whole world. No, we're working on it for sure, for sure.
I mean, just obviously to talk about your first game again, something I did notice, and I find this continually something with independent games, with especially things such as like Super Meat Boy, and I have to say that Gravity Bound probably gives that the best run for its money out of any independent game I played recently. What is it about independent games constantly trying to find new ways to create this most taxing game ever while having probably the most simplest of setups? Is this some sort of like competition between independent companies to see who can come up with the most sadistic game possible?
I don't think that's the competition, but we just want to be different. We want to be different. We want to offer something that people are not used to. Because if we give something that people always play, always used to, the question is behind why choose our game? Why not choose like the one who have 2 million budget behind it? Why choosing our game? So we want to be different. We want to offer something very nice. In our side, we wanted to help people train their logic, because too often people tends to just let their brain like going not dead but almost like during the day. They're not using it frequently. So we try by making a game that helps bring your logic up. Like if you play it every day, it help you with your brain, not just like you waste your time.
Yeah. I, I have to say, and this is certainly something that Greg Band's got right, is the fact that you frequently encounter a level and it will tax you, but when you complete it, it's like you get this little rush and it makes you want to continue. And it's I love the way that the game sort of rewards you for sticking with it and to constantly keep trying with the game. And is there any sort of special approach to creating a game like this, or is it just part of the mechanic that it sort of instinctively works its way into the game?
uh, for sure you have to think about those things when you create a mechanic, because one of the key thing to know is user feedback. Like when they do something good, reward them. When they do something bad, let them know too. They have to know. They have to know how they did. If they did well, like congratulate them, so they will keep doing levels. Like you said, you feel one, you feel the rush, and then you said, I want to do another. Like the game rewarded me, said it was impressive, said I was good. I want that feeling too again. So you want to try another. That's the main key that you have to think about when you do a mechanics. Like why people want to play it again, not just play it one time and leave the game there and play something else.
I guess the challenge as well is like the challenge is very important for making puzzle games. It always fascinates me how the process of thought is behind building like puzzles. Like just say just the maps that you have for bomb conflict or gravity bounds. Like how do you come up with that? Is there some way to generate a map like that or do you just think of how that works?
For the map, we've created a small tool that we use to generate maps, but for most part, it comes out straight from our head. So for the world maps, I just draw them on paper with a ruler and a pen and a pencil and an eraser. I just draw them all, gave them to my visual artist, and I said I want something like that that looks good, because that doesn't look good. But I want something that looks good that is shaped like that. So my visual artist did a very great job on this, and then he created a map that way. Same for the levels. We've built a structure, and then we're just creating level by level by level by level, and then we test them and say like this doesn't work, this works. And to balance this, we've done a lot of beta testings with a pool of like around 50, 60 peoples, and like when they just hang on one level and they just can't make it, we adjust it so the difficulty curve can goes in a smooth way, not like in a erratic way. Like this one is very hard and the next level is very easy. We try to have a very smooth difficulty curve, but for this we have to do a lot of testing. We can have it on the first try.
Certainly sounds like you're avoiding the pitfall that a lot of the LucasArts graphic adventures used to have, things such as like Day of the Tentacle or some Max Hit the Road, where you'd get to a certain point and it would feel like you hit a wall, and that no matter what you tried, you could just never get past it, and it just used to constantly frustrate me. So it's so nice to actually hear that developers are taking this into account and making these tweaks so that they're not making the game too easy, but they're making it so that at the same time it's not ridiculously difficult that you don't want to play anymore. You just walk away or find a cheat or something to get around it, which was always my usual way of getting past those LucasArts games. But
But right now on the market, there's so much analytic tools that are so powerful, because we are using some in our game. So when people play the game, on the backside, we know like someone played that game. We don't know who, but we know that there's a player who played that game and did those moves. So if we see like there's 1,000 people dying at the exact same level, we know like we have to change it. We have to adjust it so less people will die there and go a bit further in the game. So there's a lot of analytics tool now since like the last 2-3 years that came up that helps developers a lot, like adjusting the game.
Like I played your game right now, and I'm playing Bomb Conflict right now, and I just wonder, like, are you constantly making more levels and expanding the world, or how many right now is available? Like how many worlds? Maybe levels would be impossible, and I don't
Yeah,
know.
but there's 4 world out right now, and we're working on a 5th world at the moment. The map has been drawn, like half of the levels have been designed, so we're working on it right now. But half of our time is on this, and the other half is like improving the actual gameplay. Like how can we improve the mechanics? How can we adjust the difficulty curves and stuff? So yeah, we're working on it, but half time, like I said. So it will come out. It will come out.
That's something to look forward to then.
For Maitop Games at the moment, I mean, you've obviously said at the moment you're working on new levels for Bomb Conflict and new worlds. Is there any other projects on the drawing board, or and at the same time, are you planning on just staying with the mobile games route, or do you have plans to expand further and maybe like do work on for games on consoles?
Oh, for sure. We have some plans on the side. Like our main focus here is Bomb Conflict right now because it just came out. So we want to give some love to this game and make it go further and further. But we have some plans on the side. I can't tell much about it, but I can say that it'll have a competitive side. Like we want to aim that competitive market, but I can't tell much about it. It's just where it's on the drawing table. It's being thinked at the moment, but yes, we have some plans on this side.
Yeah, well, that just about wraps up this episode. Thank you so much for listening, and we'd like to again thank our guest Jonathan for obviously joining us, and obviously coming on to talk about not only
My
your gaming
pleasure.
past and sharing your thoughts on these games and giving us an insight into how indie games are made. It seems to be like one of those markets that's still kind of a mystery. We know kind of how indie games are made, but we don't know other aspects such as like how games are sort of tweaked and stuff. So it's been fascinating, obviously, getting that insight to know that there is actually a team that work on tweaking games and adjusting the difficulty to sort of maximize that enjoyment. But obviously, if you did enjoy this episode, please make sure to like or share a comment in the section below.
And definitely
Also,
subscribe. Subscribe.
yes, please do subscribe. All those subscribes do definitely help. You can, as always, also hit us up via the Facebook page as well as our Twitter, which is Game Warp Podcast. And there we do post daily gaming news updates as well as links to all our recent reviews and shows, which can also be found on our home base, thatmomentin.com. Full details of which should be now on the screen now. But Jonathan, obviously, if people want to follow Mailtop Games, find out what's happening on your side, where's the best place that they can come and find more information on the games and yourselves?
Yeah, they can find information on our website, bombconflict.com, or they can check our Facebook page, Bomb Conflict, or they can also check our company page, Maitop Games, or maitop.ca.
Fantastic. Well, again, thanks, Jonathan, for coming on and talking about Bomb Conflict and your games. We wish you all the best for the future, and we obviously look forward to seeing what you have in store for us in the future. And until next time, though, thank you for listening.